a flash of light tore through the sky. Russia was engulfed in a sea of fire. This wasn't an ordinary Schellenjet, was a meticulously calculated, cold-blooded, and eerily precise strike, launched from deep within Ukrainian territory. Last night, the Ukrainian military announced it had destroyed yet another Russian ammo depot. You've seen explosions before, but this one was something else. In Kartisk, 50 kilometers behind Russian lines, a Ukrainian strike detonated a 5,000-ton ammunition depot, triggering a blast with the destructive power of 10% of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. One click on the subscribe button. You will always be the first to know the shocking secrets. The fireball and a series of secondary explosions sent shockwaves rippling across the region. Witnesses described the ground shaking for kilometers around. This wasn't a lucky hit it. Was the result of weeks of drone reconnaissance, electronic warfare that blinded Russian radar, and a detailed plan to exploit a rare moment of vulnerability. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Ukraine is able to dismantle each link in Russia's logistics and command chain. To see how a small force can strike this deep, we need to peel back the layers of technology and preparation behind the attack. How did Ukraine manage to hit a target 50 kilometers behind enemy lines? At 4:30 a.m. on the 2nd of July, a series of explosions ripped through the Kartisk ammo depot in Donetsk, 50 kilometers behind the Russian front lines. This depot held 5,000 tons of ammunition and served as a critical logistics hub for Russian artillery. Ukraine used 6 M31A1 missiles from the US. Made HIMARS system, targeting Russia's supply lines in the occupied zone with precision rather than brute force firepower. Right after the initial strike, stored D-20 shells detonated, triggering a chain reaction that ignited Grad rocket launchers and 220mm missiles. Concrete blocks and steel columns were torn apart. The entire facility collapsed beyond recovery. The scale of destruction wasn't just visible to the naked eye, it was confirmed by global satellite monitoring data. A massive pillar of fire shot hundreds of meters into the sky, and the blast pressure was felt as far as 800 kilometers away. Infrared sensors, drones, and local witnesses all recorded an explosion unlike anything seen before. Russia lost 5,000 tons of ammunition in an instant, crippling its artillery plans and throwing its entire supply network into chaos. What enabled Ukraine to pull off this stunning feat was HIMARS. Unlike traditional artillery, Hawaii Mars is highly mobile, firing and vanishing before Russian counter-battery radar can react. This shoot and scoot capability, combined with the long range and pinpoint accuracy of the M31A1, allows Ukraine to strike deep into critical targets without losing a single soldier. But technology alone doesn't win battles. This success was the result of meticulous coordination from the timing of jamming operations to the programming of the warhead fuses. Everything was synchronized perfectly to exploit the weakest moment in Russia's defense chain. A cold, calculated, and ruthless operation, like a deadly game of chess. The explosion at Kartitsk was a bold statement of Ukraine's chillingly precise, long-range strike capability. But behind that thunderous blow was a silent, 3-week-long intelligence operation launched by an elite unit, the 73rd Special Reconnaissance Brigade. They were the ones who drew the deadly map for this historic strike. The turning point came when thermal drones detected cooling systems running around the clock inside the depot. These are only activated when ammunition stockpiles reach critical levels used to prevent accidental detonation and keep rockets stable. That confirmed Kartitsk was housing a massive arsenal likely in preparation for a major Russian offensive. That intel was pure gold, but not enough. Intelligence analysts needed to confirm it wasn't a Russian deception. That's when the EU's Sentinel-1 radar satellite was deployed. Its synthetic aperture imaging revealed dense metal signatures and ongoing machinery activity inside, proving this was a real depot, not a decoy or an empty shell. They went all in on cross-referencing radar images, drone footage, thermal data. The result: an ultra-detailed map simulating the ammo depot's layout, load-bearing walls, corridors, and critical weak points. This wasn't blind bombardment anymore. It was surgical precision, with each missile aimed at the exact spot to trigger the most devastating chain reaction possible. Just before 0 hour, analysts even factored in ionospheric electromagnetic interference to ensure pinpoint guidance. They chose 4:30 a.m., a moment of calm air, stable GPS signals, and when Russian troops were deep in sleep, it wasn't rando. It was a deadly moment calculated down to the second, and every footstep taken. The goal wasn't just to burn the ammo, was to bring down the entire depot, reducing it to rubble beyond repair. Every warhead had to hit a precise spot. Every explosion needed to trigger a cascading chain reaction throughout the structure. There was no room for a single misstrike, because if they failed, the rare window would vanish forever. But they didn't fail. And just as planned, the first explosion was only the beginning. A wave of secondary blasts tore through every level-burning steel, supports, melting concrete, and engulfing Kartisk in an all-consuming inferno. It was the culmination of weeks of analysis, cross-checking, and calculation like a precision-built killing machine. A cold-blooded execution that left even military experts speechless. But this strike didn't just destroy an ammo depot, it collapsed the entire Russian artillery network on the Donetsk front, and the domino effect was immediate. The Donetsk-Lvov railway linea, critical supply artery, was shredded by shrapnel and forced to shut down for 7 hours. The entire logistics web froze up, like Russia's throat being suddenly and violently squeezed shut. Kartisk wasn't just a storage site, it was the beating heart of Russia's artillery tactics. Under former Soviet military classification, it was a level 5 ammo depot capable of holding 5,000 tons of shells and rockets. On average, 60 trucks moved in and out daily, loaded with 152mm and 122mm rounds, the lifeblood of Russia's signature scorched earth artillery style on the Donetsk battlefield. When that heart stopped beating, the consequences were beyond imagination. Russia couldn't instantly replace a logistics hub like Kartisk. Instead of centralized resupply, they were forced to patch things together with scattered, smaller depots, costing time, increasing risk, and leaving them vulnerable to follow-up strikes. The supply chain descended into chaos like a staggering giant struggling to find balance in a storm of bullets. The impact became clear just days later. Before the explosion, Russian artillery at Donetsk fired around 5,000 shells per day. Afterward, that number plunged to just 3,900. A freefall not only in quantity but in tacticsless ammo meant weaker fire support, Russian troops were more exposed, and Ukraine's defensive lines held stronger than ever. Every silent minute from a Russian gun became a lifeline for Ukrainian soldiers. With enemy firepower fading, Ukrainian forces gained precious time to counterattack, reposition, and fortify their defenses. In the 15 days following Kartisk, Russia fired 12,000 to 15,000 fewer shells, losing 20 to 25% of its artillery strength. A bitter collapse, painfully clear and impossible to ignore. Click subscribe today. I will be motivated to make even more shocking videos. And that thunderous blow landed at the most critical moment. In early July, Russia was preparing for a large-scale offensive in the south. But with Kartisk reduced to ashes, the entire plan collapsed. Battle schedules were thrown into disarray, troops were short on ammunition, and major assaults had to be postponed or scrapped altogether. This strike didn't just destroy hardware, it severed Russia's ability to launch large-scale operations. But Ukraine didn't stop there, they aimed deeper, at the command structure itself. They knew that hitting artillery was just the first step. Targeting the command system was the true killing blow. Massive ammo depots take months to stockpile, but only minutes to go up in flames. And once logistics collapse, panic spreads through the ranks, forcing the enemy into a desperate, fear-driven game of catch-up. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, Ukraine came alive. With Russian shelling drastically reduced, commanders could organize defenses more effectively, and soldiers felt a renewed sense of safety. The Kartisk operation proved one thing: war isn't just about who fires more. It's about who can stop the enemy from firing at all. And Ukraine did exactly that. On the 30th of June, the strike on the command center in Donetsk offered clear proof of Ukraine's decapitation strategy. The 8th Army Corps was the brain behind all Southern Operations Troop deployments, electronic warfare, and artillery coordination. When that brain was hit, the entire Russian military structure plunged into confusion, like a battlefield beast suddenly decapitated in mid-charge. Striking a heavily fortified base like that was no easy feat. Ukraine had to deploy ultra-high-resolution satellite imagery, jam enemy signals, and even rely on special forces on the ground to pinpoint transmitters, power stations, and command hubs. Every tiny detail was mapped into a kill zone blueprint. And once the map was complete, the HIMARS blade came slicing down. The nightmare struck like a storm, crashing down on Russian forces. The first wave of missiles leveled the main operations room, paralyzing the command center. Then came the antennas, transmitters, and relay stations, all gone. In an instant, the headquarters became a blackout city, unable to give orders, unable to receive instructions, plunged into darkness and chaos. And as deep strikes relentlessly wiped out ammo depots and command centers, the battlefield began to tilt. Russia wasn't just losing munitions or commanders, they were losing the initiative. Ukraine had redrawn the rules of engagement with cold, surgical precision. If you found this analysis gripping, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss the next breakdown of modern warfare tactics.